Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Last time you learned everything you needed to know to get started with note reading. But a very important thing you need to train for is to understand the way rhythm is written on a score. So if you want to learn how to read rhythm, or if you have any questionings on this very subject, this video is made for you. So don't forget to subscribe to not miss any of my next videos, and let's get started. In the previous video, I told you that music is like a language. And in any language, sometimes you can speak slowly or quickly. It depends on the way you feel, on the way you want to convey informations or emotions. In music, it's the same. And to indicate at what pace you should play a song, we rely on something called beats per minute. As almost any living creature on this planet, we have a heart beating in our body. This heart beats at a certain frequency, in a certain rhythm. And to quantify this rhythm, we count the number of beats it does under 1 minute. So if it beats one time every second, the number of beats per minute is 60. If it beats twice a second, this number becomes 120 beats per minute. In music, what gives life to a song is not a heart, but a metronome. A metronome is basically a system that will emit a ticking sound at a certain frequency. It indicates at what speed you should play. Then, as a heart, if it ticks one time every second, the beats per minute, or BPM, is equal to 60. We also use another word, which is tempo, coming from the word time in Italian. So then, if the metronome is set on 60 for a song, we say that this song has a tempo of 60 BPM. But how does a tempo help us to know the duration of a note? Well, a note is composed of several parts, and some parts are here to tell us about its duration. A note is composed of 3 different parts: the note head, the stem, and the flag. Each of these parts can take different shapes to indicate how long you should play this note. For example, if the duration of a note is equal to 1 beat, the note head stays full and black, the stem doesn't move, but the flag disappears. We call this note a quarter note. Then, if your tempo is set on 90, what you have in front of you must be played like this. Each note has a duration of 1 beat. That's the definition of a quarter note, and because of that, in most cases, the tempo of a song is indicated by this symbol. It means there will be this number of quarter notes under 1 full minute. There's another way to express the tempo of a song, for example by using Italian words as adagio, which means slowly with great expression, or andante, which means at a walking pace. Thanks to that, we have more information and freedom to interpret a song as we feel like. Of course, there are not only quarter notes in music. There's a whole set of notes, each having different forms for different durations. The most common ones are the whole note, the half note, the quarter note, the eighth note, and the 16th note. You have to learn this by heart. If you see one of these notes, you have to know directly how many beats it lasts. You should have noticed that there's a relation between their durations. Indeed, a whole note equals 2 half notes, one half note equals 2 quarter notes, and so on. This chart is very convenient, because like that, you can see how many notes you can actually store in a certain number of beats. Actually, we can group notes together to ease the reading. This kind of grouping is named beaming and can only happen with notes having a flag. If we have a group of 8th notes, for example a group of 4, we can group them either in groups of 2 or in one group of 4, and this thanks to what is called a beam. In the case of 8th notes, the notes must be either linked to have the value of a quarter note, so 2 by 2, or the value of a half note, one group of 4. Sometimes we can also see groups of 3, but in particular cases. The number of beams between notes can vary. If a note has one flag, we only put one beam, but in the case of 16th notes, the group is connected by 2 beams, and the same logic applies with smaller subdivisions. But the big difference is that from 16th notes, if possible, the groups must be equal to the value of a quarter note. For instance, if you just have 2 16th notes, you have no other choice but to group them together. But in the case where you have a big number of notes, you have to group them by beat. So for 16th notes, it will go like this, and for 32nd notes, it will go like this. Notes not having the same value can also be linked together, and in that case, the total duration must always be equal to a quarter note. To position notes on a score, the rule says that if the notes are below the 3rd line, it must be like this, and if it's above the 3rd line, like this. It can vary sometimes, but just know it's here to ease the reading. The notes values don't actually change. With all of that in mind, if I show you some examples, you should already be able to understand what's going on. But music isn't only composed of notes. A big part of music, and what makes music even more enjoyable, is silence. And to write down silences on a score, we use rests. A rest is a musical notation which indicates the time silence must last. So during this time, no notes must be played. Each note value has its equivalent. A rest lasting 4 beats, like a whole note, is called a whole rest. Then the other subdivisions are therefore the half rest, the quarter rest, the eighth rest, the 16th rest, and so on. A rest has no pitch, then on a staff it lies roughly on its center. Finally, if I show you some examples, you should start to understand how notes and rests work together. Sometimes those durations are not enough, or do not fit for the situation. Then other symbols exist to increase the value of notes and rests. A way to increase the duration is to use the dot. It says that the value of the actual symbol must be summed with the value of the subdivision below. So this dotted half note has now the value of a half note plus the value of a quarter note, so 3 beats. And this dotted quarter rest is then equal to this. There's also the double dot, and the value of a double dotted symbol must be summed with the value of the 2 subdivisions below. So a double dotted quarter note equals this. Then finally you have the tie. A tie is a curved line between 2 notes of same pitch to show that the second one is a continuation of the first. So one quarter note linked to another quarter note has the same value and sound than a half note. Therefore, if a half note is linked with a quarter note, it has the same value than a dotted half note. You can link as many notes as you want if needed. It's way more convenient and visual than points, so ties are very common. That concludes the first part on the value of notes. So now let's talk about how songs and pieces are structured rhythmically speaking. If I keep on going with my comparison between music and a language, I will explain to you that every song is like a poem. In music, instead of syllables, we have beats, and instead of verses, we have measures. Measures are what divide a song as a poem is divided by verses. They are delimited by thin bar line across the staff. Each of them must contain a certain number of beats, and this number is established by the time signature, or meter. The time signature is composed of 2 numbers, one above the other, placed just after the key signature. The number above determines how many beats are in each measure, and the number below indicates the duration of these beats. To each note value is given a number, 1 for the whole note, 2 for the half note, 4 for the quarter note, and so on. So here we got 2/4, one above the other. We say that the time signature is in 4/4, which means each measure must contain 4 beats, each having the length of a quarter note. Then, if I count along this song, it gives 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This time signature is the most common one in Western music. Almost every pop songs are in 4/4. We even named it common time, and sometimes the 4/4 can be replaced by a C. Another very common one is a 3/4 meter. Here, each measure is composed of 3 beats, each having the value of a quarter note. So we're supposed to count the rhythm like that. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You can see a huge difference in the feel of the piece just by getting rid of 1 beat by measure. Like that, you should realize how time is actually something really malleable in music. But in the last 2 examples, counting was super easy because the numbers below were equal to the reference we use for the tempo, which is a quarter note. Other time signatures are possible, but the full explanation of how they work and how to differentiate them will need a dedicated video. Now that you're familiar with measures, you need to know the different kinds of bar lines and the different rules you must respect. There is the regular one, which delimits measures, the double bar that separate 2 different sections of the same song, the repeat signs telling that what is between those signs must be repeated twice, and the end sign that indicates the end of the piece. There are some rules with bar lines. For example, a beam can never cross a bar line. If a note needs to last between 2 measures, you must use a tie. Then, if an accidental is used on a note, this note will be affected by the accidental during the rest of the measure. So for example, here we have an E flat. Then, if I place a natural in front of the next note, all of the other E of the measure will become natural. And in the next measure, it will retrieve its original state without needing any accidental. Sometimes, a composer will add what we call a Cortesi accidental. This is to make you remember what the original pitch is. It's just a regular accidental, but between brackets. There are hundreds of possibilities when it comes to write down music. And what I explained you during this video is only the fundamental knowledge that allows you to start learning how to read it. I hope this video has been useful for you guys, and that now you can start learning music with more confidence and understanding. Don't forget to subscribe to support me with this channel, like the video and comment if you have any remark. Next time we will talk about one of the most important things in music, which is intervals. So stay tuned and see you next time.